Sixth Hermetic principle, cause and effect. Let's talk about this in a way that I know I can deliver to you beyond the simple understanding of physics, even though it's completely related to physics and metaphysics for that matter, because all that exists in physics exists in metaphysics. So it's just a matter of inverting the two and checking out what's happening on one side or the other. But I want to take it beyond, okay? Because for two reasons, this principle is quite easy to be overlooked. And I think this is what happens a lot when we find out principles, laws, let's call them axioms even, like me saying, you are infinity, you are an infinite being. And intellectually we can accept the concept and we move on. It's like, like it's nothing. Yeah, I'm infinite. Let me go take my dog out, which is okay. That's actually a proper response. It's just that it is not usually explored to what the meaning of it is. What does that mean for my life? How can that improve my life? So that's where I want to bring the law of cause and effect today. So we're going to base, obviously, some of the stuff in the KYBALION, some of the things that they say, but I'm more interested in giving you a trip between the ordinary, normal belief and understanding of cause and effect, and then all the way to the mental plane and beyond. So the first thing that I think is important, let's just begin with the universe itself and physics as we know it. This is the premise of physics in general. We think in conventional science and reductionist science, we think that everything is the result of something that is happening at a lower level, and we can break it into parts. That's the model that we have. We have parts, divisible parts that can explain the whole universe. And it's overseeing the connectiveness that exists in everything. So I like one part of the KYBALION. When you go to the chapter of causation or principle of cause and effect, you're going to find that they talk about something. It's a whole phrase that every effect has its cause, every cause has its effect, and so on. But this is the part that I like the most in that phrase from the KYBALION. It says, chance is but a name for law not recognized. That's true. We think that, for example, and this is important because we base our beliefs, we base our whole society, the way we interact with each other at a human level and at a political, geopolitical level. So I think this is important to set down in our minds to understand really what's at play by thinking that we are the product of mere chance. This is the reality that we're living. We're living in a society, in a world that believes that we are a product of chance. And chance is just a name for law not recognized, which means that we're basing our model of society much like we would base, let's say, rocket ships on a faulty law for gravity, or not even taking in consideration gravity. That would be a disaster. But see, because we think that everything is subjective and it's all in our minds, then we can get away with thinking that we are the product of mere chance. And that is where the problem is in our society itself. So I think this concept alone, if understood by just one more person in the world, can make a whole difference. And this is why you're watching this. So hopefully it'll settle in, because this is, to me, very important. To me, to my being, not because I think it's important for the environment or for people or for society. I don't have an agenda. I don't really care what happens in the world. I just think that some things are overlooked and we can shine some light on it and just revel, on the idea. There's nothing else to be done. There's no actions to be done. In fact, that's the whole reason why we have cause and effect, because we take action, karma. And karma comes into play. We talked about it in the last video. It's important too, because cause and effect is almost like the swing of karma in this sense. So, okay. So we know that nothing is by chance. Chance is just our way of saying, we don't know what's happening. That's just chance. It's a coincidence. We know there are no such things as coincidences. So I have here, I think this is an important point that I want to make too. This is me, this is the KYBALION, this is me. Anything that doesn't have quotes. Just so you can differentiate from the KYBALION, this is not said in the KYBALION, this is me. So don't take it too seriously. This is just my belief. Life is a process, not a series of events. You see, life, when we consider it from the reductionist point of view of science, we think that life is a series of events, that it's just happening. And although we can take a flower, the way it grows from seed to blooming, and call it, we can section it, segment it, we can create parts of the growing process. It's not parts that are happening or that are there are in sequence, like one comes after the other. It's a whole process. There is no moment where there is, winter turns into spring. There is no such moment. It's a whole process. The 4 seasons are one process. There is no 4 seasons. It's just processes. We just break it down for convenience. But the problem is when we start believing in the convenience of the parts of the process that we created. They are illusory. They are not tangible. They're not real. So I think this is an important point because, again, it's one of those basic principles that we overlook and say, yeah, it's a process, but obviously, my life is happening day by day. Or your life is a continuous process too. And ignoring this is making us fall into many disorders, mental disorders, because we think something will happen that is part of the process or the parts of the process that we have. Trust me, it gets, and you can see it in yourself, when you believe in parts separate from each other, then by default you're thinking that you are separate from the environment and you are the environment. So this is important to know. The law of cause and effect surely shows that everything that's been happening is just a result of the momentum that reality is just doing. So we are blooming like the flower, and it's only because we live in such a slow, very dense reality. People who follow me in the law of one would understand this. We are in the most dense reality that self-awareness can be invested in, which means that a process that is so quick, we perceive it as so slow. And there are reasons for that, because there is no race here to finish the process. It's enjoying the process. And that's what we're here for. We're here to enjoy the slow process of the blooming of consciousness, which is really what's happening here. And for that, I wish I could bring you an analogy, but I haven't really thought of one, other than just enjoying a trip, maybe. The trips don't last. Trips that don't last too long are not memorable. But those trips that took a long time, bus, train, ship, flight, whatever, the longer the journey, the better. Imagine somebody who was delivering something from Europe to the Americas 500 years ago and had to go through, different roads and ships and horses and mules and so on, just to deliver something and then come back home. That was the whole purpose. The whole experience was not the delivery moment. It was the whole process. So in this reality, we're living that process. And so things seems very slow. and because they're very slow, we think they are separate and they're going to end. And this is where the whole fun of this reality actually comes from the ignorance, from avidya. And yeah, there's nothing better to illustrate this than I have here, which is that the Big Bang was the initial cause. When the Big Bang occurred, right, that was the initial. Actually, the Big Bang was the effect of another cause, which was the big contraction of what in the law of one they call the heartbeats. So there's an expansion. You can call it, even the Hindus talk about the breath of Brahm, which inhales the creation and exhales the creation. So there is a Big Bang exhalation and then an inhalation back to source. And it goes on and on. We do it every day. That's why we saw in the law of correspondence, everything corresponds as above, so below. We saw rhythm. Rhythm is a huge one here. The universe is rhythmic. So if there is a Big Bang, there needs to be a rhythm to it of a big contraction. And we saw that in consciousness, because consciousness is just elevating itself so it can finally return to source. And that we see in metaphysics. We call it the black holes are actual spiritual mass that is accruing once again. Everything will coalesce in the end and just return to source and then expand again into a new octave, as we talk about in the law of one. So the Big Bang, let's just call it for the sake of argument and for simplicity, was the cause, the initial cause, but we're still the effects of it. So that means that we are that process of the universe banging, the Big Bang just spreading itself out. Implicitly, we are in the process, just like the nectar of a flower is in the seed, because it's already implicit there. It doesn't take it from anywhere else. It makes it from that little coding that happened there. So in the Big Bang, we had a little coding that said Gabriel talking to camera on November 2021. See? So everything that's happening is just the effects of this. And why is this useful, you may ask? Well, the first thing that we need to understand is that this is physics. This is just simple physics, okay? And it's useful because for people who are obviously inclined to spirituality, which you surely are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this, there is a sense into it. There is a sort of liberation and a peace of mind when it comes to us thinking about reality, thinking about life, thinking about the future. I think it's the best possible use we can have. To think about the future is to relax into the coding of the universe that is just happening. That doesn't mean that you're going to just lay there. A lot of people may say that, may think that way, that you're just going to, I'm just going to stay home and do nothing because the universe is going to do everything for me. Well, you'd be quite right, actually. You could do that and see what happens. You see, you're also falling into, because, again, law of correspondence, as above, so below. If you make, obviously, if you do something, then the effect of that is going to show as part of your free will. And that's something that I want to get at the end. But you can see already how this law it's showing us what's really happening in the universe and how we should relax to it. And that's in the spiritual sense. I think that is the peace of mind that comes spiritually when knowing that everything is unfolding according to previous causes. So relax. Don't cause more effects. Just don't push more in the universe, because you're gonna have to witness what you pushed, okay? Or this is not to say not to, but know that what you're doing is just, it's a simple process. You are being that, and you shouldn't worry about the things that you're doing, nor should you be stopping to do things because you're afraid of the consequences. Just do and watch it unfold. But I want to bring you to the mind. And this is one part, because I think the mind is beyond spirit and beyond physicality, of course, because the mind is the portal between us and the spiritual and the physics, of course, the material universe, the space-time continuum. And it's the portal also. It's like a three-way portal to the metaphysic side of everything, to the physics side of everything, and to source. I think that's why the mind is so powerful. So I want to bring you there. I actually don't say this. This is the KYBALION. The further the creation is from the center, the more it is bound. The nearer the center it reaches, the freer it is, or is it? This brought me to a Buddhist understanding that you are kind of expanding out from the center. The identity self, the ego self, is expanding out from source. And that expansion comes at the cost of you feeling separate from the center. So when I read this in the KYBALION, I could not think of this concept, because that's what to me is saying here, or at least is what triggers in my mind. The further the creation is, and you are the creation, the Big Bang is the creation, right? And the more it is spread out, then the more it is bound. It is bound to source, okay? And you feel that, you know that. How do you feel it? By the depression would be the word. The sense of longing, the sense of seeking that you have, because, and this is why it is said, you know, in spirituality and healing of the soul and all this stuff, physical being and everything, that the moments that are more helpful for spiritual growth are those in which you feel the most disconnected from the world, because you are expanding so much. You're so much further from the creation by believing that you are nothing, or that you are separate, or that you are a victim. That tension from the expansion, the tension that creates like a bow, it's going to be released eventually, and that's the big relief, the mystical experience that people have, and so on. Because the further you are from the creation, the more you're bound to it. And the nearer the center it reaches, the freer is it, or is it? Because you are closer to the center, and now you're free. You're free from any sort of attachment to the world that is expanding you, that is causing this tension. So the closer you are to the center, the more you're free, and that's what we call liberation, moksha, nirvana, so many names for it. And so this summarizes what we are and how we come here to play the game. This is all because we have a mission, you could call it, and we just go and become, and by becoming we can experience ourselves, and then by some point, either by death or during the lifetime or the life experience, you go back to source. And the key to living life fulfilled really is a balance in between the two. Not so much completely into the center of the universe, and not so far to the outer reaches of the creation, you being completely expanded, which is, you can probably think about this too, when people want to take too much. It's funny, in Spanish we have a saying that I'll probably butcher it in English, but it's like, the more you want to take over, the less you can grip. So your grip is weaker the more you want to grab, something like that. I'll make sure I say it in my Spanish video. So this is key. This is really key to know. And I know this is a concept that requires some reflection, but if you can see it this way, you will find. I want you to just take a look at this. If you have knowledge about Buddhism, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, just grab the concept and it's going to repeat in your life. I guarantee you're going to see it over and over again if you put your will to it, which is the next point I'm going to get. and you will see it unfold, and just the universe is going to paint it to you in different ways. The more you are expanded, not contracted, stretched out into the universe, the more you're bound to it. And that tension is what you feel as emotions. The more liberated you are is because you are more to center. And that is less into the stretching of the identity of self, the ego self. All right, so lastly, the use of will. I have this, which is the last part that I want to give you for practical purposes. I hope I can make a point here, because I think this is the key. The KYBALION, they say, you get the key when you get the laws and all this stuff. Well, this is the key for this, for everything actually, but I'm going to use it here. The use of will. What do I have written down? Master over the causes of actions. I kind of took this out of the KYBALION too. I read something like it, and I just said, this is brilliant. So, mastery over the causes of actions. You become the player, not the game. Because once you know that the game has rules and the game is playing itself out, you are a simple process of the game. Then you can become the player. So it's almost like, I'll give you an example. Somebody who hasn't been liberated. Take me, for example, where I thought I was the product of a series of events in my past. And I would continue to be so I was always afraid of all the things that were coming to me because they were shaping my reality. I was being the game. I was just being the game and being played by the game, okay? And so once I realized that this is not true, that I am actually guiding my own reality by perception, then I realized over a period of reflections that I was the player and that I could come back to the game. So I kind of, in Zen they say that when I was a young man and didn't know anything about Zen, and mountains were mountains and waters were waters. Then, when I started to get an understanding of Zen, mountains were no longer mountains and waters were no longer waters. But then when I finally realized Zen, mountains were mountains and waters were waters. That summarizes the person who thinks that reality is just is and you're just part of it. Then when you go into the process of liberation, you realize that everything is illusory, things are not what they seem. And then when you come back, everything is the same, but you are the player now. This is all through the use of will. Your will is defining your reality. If you don't know what will is in your day-to-day basis, take note of every single thought that brings you to specific actions that you take every day, and that is your will. Your will is focused on that, whether it be family, work, activities, entertainment, all of those focuses or foci that exist in your perception of your life, they are the use of will, or they are the product of will, because you have your will placed there. This is why we call willpower to do things. You have to have willpower for a diet. Of course, you have to set up your mind so much that all the conditioning, all the causes from the past don't affect your reality at the moment. And so you're struggling with all of this, and that is the use of willpower. So the will gets reinforced by your decision to, first of all, let's take it at root. Just not activities or affirmations and so on. They're all helpful, sure. But at the root of everything, they are conditioned thoughts. And it's the degree of seeking that you have for one thing that you want to accomplish. And so you do it. The more you focus your will, the more you realize that you don't have enough time to put your will there. So you devote your whole life into something. That is the use of will. So if you can use your will to realize this, then you will be, I guarantee you, in a better place perceptually, because it's just how it works. So this one, again, it's easy. I don't think like I said, I wanted to bring you to a full realization of what cause and effect actually interacts with our reality, but mostly in our minds. You know, we can measure it in physics. We can measure it. You know, we can imagine it physically, metaphysically, spiritually. But how it plays daily, you know, in our lives, and what every cause that we have, right, or everything that's causing our reality, and it's bringing about those effects, is because we have been conditioned to that. We have it's almost like an automatic mechanism that happens all the time when we do things. And so if you can grab control of that, if you can just direct that will into other things, then you will see a huge change in your life. So again, our friend the wave returns, and this one again is easy. This is where you see the overlap of everything, and that's why it was so easy for me to promise that through a wave you can understand all of this. Obviously, for every cause, you know, there is an effect, so you can see this as cause and this as the effect, and then it'll repeat again and it'll go on. Liberation, going to the center, is realizing that you are not this. You are the experience of this, which is the point of view that sees the nodal points in between the cause and the effects. It's not about, you know, stopping this law. You cannot stop it. It will continue. But by you, instead of riding the waves, you sit in the middle. You enjoy the waves. You become the player. You become the audience of reality. And with the will, you change the perception of what cause and effect means to you. Just like the young man in Zen changed his perspective on mountains and waters. They were again the same mountains and waters, but from a different perspective, because he was liberated. And so I liberate you from this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this made sense. Leave me any comments if it didn't, and if it did, also leave me comments. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in the next video.